What's up, Dealmakers? We just finished Ask Alex, and this was our 100th and final webinar, and we had an incredibly special guest to close things out. Pace Morby, Mr. Creative Finance, Mr. Subject to. Alex, what were your biggest takeaways today?
So one of my biggest takeaways was that you can buy almost anything using creative finance. And he gave an example of a car that he recently bought. So that was huge. And the next big one is that when you're buying real estate deals as an investor, you need to find your unique advantage because it's rarely going to be about price. Find that for yourself. And there's so much more in this webinar. Check it out. Hey, what's up, everybody? We are interviewing Pace Morby today, man. 100th episode for Ask Alex. I'm super excited today to host one of the biggest names in real estate investing. This guy is a community leader in the subject to arena, and I think you guys are going to in for a real treat. I have a lot of my own personal questions I want to ask Pace, but I seen him recently speak at the Bigger Pockets conference. I've also been following along his journey. Also know a lot of people that are in his, his current mastermind and his community. And I mean, this guy's just an absolute rock star. So I think you guys are in for a real treat. And in the meantime, we're going to wait for our co-host, Will Wall, jump on before we can get in and to start to ask Mr. Pace Morby some questions. But make sure that you guys are using the chat or the question feature. He's going to be answering questions live. There's a couple of topics that I think are super important for us to just get covered, especially what's happening right now with the market, what he's seeing, and then also just how he's been able to build out this amazing community of real estate investors. So we're just waiting for Will to jump on. But how's everybody doing? I'm still here in Mexico. Just I'll be back in LA tonight or tomorrow morning. Headed over there to start. We're gonna be doing a huge investor event ourselves at the end of this month too in November. So stay tuned for that November 17th in-person live meeting. So I guess we're just gonna have to wait for Will to jump on. He's probably having some technical difficulties, or his computer might need to be rebooted again. This guy's on the computer all day long. But yeah, so as you guys know, Pace Morby, this guy's he's really, what he's done better than anybody in the entire country is brought this creative finance strategy and way of thinking to mainstream. Where when you say sub two, like, people know what that means now. And before Pace, people did not know what that meant. And so some of my best deals have been these creative deals, and that's why we really wanted to have him on. This is going to be our 100th episode, and it's our final live webinar that we're doing. We're going to be launching something pretty cool next year, but I think it's just kind of run its course, and I couldn't be happier to be interviewing one of the biggest names in real estate for the 100th and final episode. Just waiting for Will to jump on anytime. But nonetheless, I'll give you guys just kind of quick update. As you guys know, usually we start our this webinar by just telling you what's going on, any updates, stuff that we're seeing. One cool thing that we did in the last week, though, just to share with you guys, is we recently locked up a deal that was $100,000 under the asking price in off of the MLS. So first of all, there's still deals in MLS. Now we're seeing people considering much larger discounts than in the last couple of months, where there was still a lot of just disagreement in the market. But I think sellers are starting to come around and seeing agents are understanding how difficult this market is. So I think this is an example. So sharing it with you guys that we got this property. The numbers still had to pencil out, but I think the lowest that I've ever been able to get off an asking price was somewhere around $80,000. And our acquisitions manager, Eliam, was able to lock this deal up $100,000 under asking, which is a huge feat. And we're seeing that happen now. So we're excited about opportunities to develop now that there's less investors. We're in a rising interest rate market. There is additional risk for, flipping and other deals like that. So next update, though, is we purchased a property in Arizona, an 18-unit, a value-add deal, and we're making significant progress on that. That we actually got to this part of the transaction called the draw phase, where now the lender will be, they'll actually be funding the remainder of the construction, and we still have about $350,000 to spend on that building. And so it's great to finally get to that benchmark and say, okay, now it's on the lender. We're not having to put in so much capital anymore. And we've been learning we've been really learning a lot from this transaction, this 18 unit. Looks like Pace is in the building. I still don't see Will, so just bear with us here. I think he's having technical difficulties, and Abby is our team member here, and she'll be kind of helping get him in and or Pace once we introduce him. But a couple quick updates. Like I said, we also had a giveaway to bring people here to my penthouse in Mexico, and that winner finally came out this past last week. I spent some time with him, amazing, him and his girlfriend. They from Southern California, and they came out and spent a couple of days with me and my team here, and we covered ground, we ate some great food, and it was fun. Also, one of the other people that I know in Southern California or in California, another investor came out, spent some time together. So that was pretty cool last week. What else? Where is Will? Oh, there he goes. Okay. And one more thing I want to mention is that we last week I was invited to speak at a Keller Williams in Mexico, and so I did that, and it was pretty cool because I don't typically give presentations in Spanish, although I do speak both languages. Speaking about real estate and speaking in Spanish isn't something that I typically do, so that was a challenge, but I rose to the occasion, and it was a success. I met some other investors here at that Keller Williams in Mexico, which was pretty fun. And I think the last update I want to give you guys is that we've confirmed to have Ryan Pineda speak at our downtown LA investor meetup on November 17th. So we've announced that. Can't wait to see you guys there. He, as you know, Ryan Pineda, or if you don't know his name, he's one of the biggest real estate investors out there, huge on social media, been one of my mentors for some time. And so he'll be speaking as the main person there at that meetup. So I'll see you all there on the 17th of November in downtown LA. What's up, Will? How you doing, buddy? Still figuring out. All right, well, so I'll introduce Pace.
Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up, buddy?
Clear?
I'm still having trouble. You're still a little bit muffled. I can hear your audio. Can you repeat?
Let's not worry about my audio. We got a great special guest on here this week. We're going to bring on Pace as our special guest right now, and we'll go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, so we're going to be bringing in, so Pace Morby, you guys know, he's like the go-to sub-2 guy. When you hear sub-2, you kind of, they're synonymous with each other. High energy, that's what so many people love about him. He's no bullshit. So, he has this loyal following because people like his straightforward approach. The guy keeps it real. He won't sugarcoat it for you. And I love his sense of humor, which I'm sure he's going to splash a little bit out with us today. And he just, he's helped thousands achieve financial freedom by using these creative strategies. What's up, Pace? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you having me. Sorry, I'm not in my studio. I have a 3,000 person challenge going on downstairs. So I left my studio, came up here so I didn't have to be around any of that and just come up here and hang out with you guys.
Oh, dude, we appreciate that, man. I know you're a leader in the community. You always have huge following, always working on a lot. So thank you for your time. We're definitely, our audience is full of, people that are looking to, do the same thing, right? Build some more freedom through financial freedom through using real estate. And we think it's so important right now, the creative strategy. So great to have you on, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So I think that we just jump right in. I know most people already know who you are, but it'd be great to kind of catch up right now as to you're an investor predominantly you're based out of Arizona, Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. And then also you kind of leaned into this creative finance space. And just share a little bit about, I guess, tidbits of some of the people that might not know who you are. I know it's probably very few people. What's your story?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of people, man. I appreciate you asking the question. So here's where I currently am right now. We currently have a little over 2,000 units in real estate, 2,000 doors. The majority of those have been purchased without using our credit, without using any credentials, without any cash of our own, all through creative finance, which is pretty amazing. It is crazy to even say that out loud, that I have 2,000 doors with with 4 years ago, I had somebody bankrupt. I didn't file bankruptcy, but somebody wiped me out. Like I had nothing. I had to sell all my assets, sell my personal home 4 years ago. And in 4 years, I accumulated 2,000 units. So, is it possible to gain financial freedom through real estate? Is it possible to do it incredibly quick? Yes, it is. I didn't start here, obviously. Where I started in real estate is I actually grew up in a contractor's household. A lot of your community, especially like the Hispanic community, very blue collar, right? We're all very blue collar. So what is the best thing that we learn is also the worst thing that we learn when we're growing up. And what is that? It's to trade our time for money. Okay, so like when I'll start when I'm 19. I'm 19. I go on a mission for my church. I'm Mormon. Anybody in here Mormon? You guys go on a mission? Maybe nobody, but I went on a mission. I went to Korea and knocked 10,000 doors on my mission. 10,000 doors. And what I was doing is I was trying to sell Jesus, man. That's the hardest thing in the world to sell to Korea, which basically everybody's Buddhist. So I learned how to talk to people about things that are hard to talk about, and I learned how to knock doors and just get the job done. How many people do you think I baptized by knocking 10,000 doors?
A couple hundred.
0. I baptized 0 people by knocking doors.
Damn, that's rough.
It was rough, but here's why I did it, is because that's what people taught me to do. They taught me that knocking doors and just going out and doing the work was the right thing to do. And me coming from a blue collar background, I just thought that was true. I thought that that's what we were supposed to do. Listen to everybody. People ahead of you know what they're doing. So about 60% of the way through my mission, I was like, this isn't working. This isn't working. I got to find something that works. And so I came up with this really unique idea that I said, what do Koreans want more than anything else? They want to learn how to speak English. So what I would do is I would knock their doors and they wouldn't answer the door. So I was like, all right, I got to be really creative. They're all in these really like high-rise apartment buildings where they all are forced to go through the same door out the front. So what I did is I created a flyer that says, I will teach English to you for free. And I had those little tabs that like hung off the end with like your phone number. And I would like fake rip 2 or 3 of them off. So it looked like I was like really popular and people were already pulling the numbers. Dude, I booked appointments like you wouldn't even freaking believe. People are like, what's the catch? And I said, well, here's the catch. I'm a Mormon missionary. I'm looking to teach people about Jesus. And I would get a lot of people hang up on me, but I got a lot of people that were like, okay, so what's the catch? I go, if you let me teach you, I'll teach you 30 minutes of English if you let me teach you 30 minutes of Jesus. And they were like, boom, I love this. So I stopped knocking doors and I just started trading value, right? I give you what you want and you give me what I want, and hopefully we can make something happen. Dude, I started baptizing people and like having so much success, and I forgot about that success until I got into real estate. Okay. And this is how I got into real estate. I did what everybody told me. I send out postcards. Right? I spent the money. I sent out the postcards. I did the cold calling. I did all the things, which, we still do all of those things to this day. But I sent out postcards to basically to like random addresses that just had a bunch of equity, because that's what people told me to do. So I spend like $5,000. I start getting calls, and that's how I got my first deal. Okay. Anybody who in here actually knows my first deal story? Anybody in here actually know my story? I'm curious in the side comments. What do we got?
Chat in, guys. If anybody knows Pace's first story.
Okay, Michael does. No, a lot of people know. Okay, great. I wanted to. So many people in here don't know my first deal. This is great. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, so let me tell you about my first deal and how. There you go. Allison knows the story. Okay, it's not Stephen. No, it's not the car deal. That's a great story too. Here's a great story. I'll be very quick. So I spend like $5,000 on postcards, and I get 3 phone calls. I missed the first 2 because I'm a contractor at this time. And when you're a contractor, you're freaking busy and you see a phone call, you don't know who the hell's calling you, you don't pick it up, you're busy, whatever. And you get around to calling them back and you're like, oh my gosh, that was one of my leads. Oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Okay. So here's what ends up happening. I go, all right, I need to get a different phone. So I get a second phone and I call it my money phone. So now I have 2 separate phone numbers. So the third call that comes in is a lady named Janie Munson. Okay. Janie Munson, retiring school teacher. She's getting ready to move from Arizona to Oregon. She's like, I need to sell my house. I go, great, no problem. I have no idea like the value. I have no idea how to comp. I no idea how to do any of that stuff. So what I did is I reached out to somebody and I said, I've got this property. I'm going to an appointment. What do I buy it for? And they go, buy it for 150. No more. Buy it for 150 and you'll make money and I'll tell you what to do next. I'm like, but I don't have 150,000 bucks. I don't know what to do. What are you talking about? You know? And they go, don't worry, just go to the appointment. So go to the appointment. I build a relationship with Janie Munson. And what ends up happening is Janie's like, I just want to sell. I've lived here for 50 years. The house is in disarray. It's disorganized. It needs a renovation. It's horrible. And I just want to move and be done with it. I go, okay, one of the most important questions I ever asked. Anybody who knows the question? What's the question I asked Janie Munson?
Do you have any other real estate?
No, great question. I didn't learn that for like a year after this. That's a great one though. The question I said was, what's keeping you from selling the property? Why did I ask that question? Is because she had postcards and business cards sitting on the countertop from other real estate investors. And I was like, why haven't you sold to them? Like, I didn't understand the business. I didn't really know those people were actually my competition. I was like, obviously you're looking to sell. Like, these people are, why haven't you sold? What's kept you from selling the property? She says, well, the highest number I have is the highest offer I have is 165,000. And I need more. And I'm like, dang it. Like, you're brand new. You don't know how to negotiate. You don't know how to anchor. You don't have none of that, right? So I got her number, which was great, 165. She wanted more money, but this is what I told her. This is also one of the most important things I learned is I stepped backwards, physically stepped backwards in my appointment with Janie. And I said, I'm probably not your buyer. And I watched her physical reaction to me stepping backwards and saying, I'm probably not your buyer. Dude, I've used that line 1,000 times. That moment I learned that line is gangster because it pulls away. And it's like, I'm probably not your buyer at that number. And I step away and it shows a physical disconnection between me and that other human. Gangster. I use it all the time.
And now they're fighting to get you back, right?
Yeah,
now
they're chasing you, right? You create that psychological pull, right? So Janie's like, okay, I guess, why don't you just give me your offer? I go, Janie, another thing I learned is I said, Janie, I don't want to offend you with how low my number was. And I genuinely felt that way. Now I use that as a sales strategy, but at the time I didn't know. I just was like, I didn't know 15 grand actually wasn't that big of a difference between 165 to 150. I just was like, I thought that was the biggest number in the world. Like, how am I going to get this lady down to 150? I thought it was the end of the world, right? So I genuinely was like, I don't want to offend you. So I guess I'll be on my way. So I'm walking towards the front door. I turn around. I say to Janie, I go, look, I can't buy your house, but is there anything else that I can do to help you? And she's like, wait, I'm so confused right now. Like, you don't want to buy my house. You don't want to give me a number, but you want to help me. Like, what are you, a Boy Scout? And I go, yeah, actually, I am an Eagle Scout. And she's like, oh, this makes sense. So you just want to help me? I go, yeah, I genuinely want to help you. I got construction guys. I got dudes that can go and load your truck. Like, whatever you need, I'll give it to you. So she says to me, okay, I got this really weird thing that I need help with. Are you serious? I go, yeah, I'm serious. So she leads me to her backyard and she shows me these 3 bunnies that are like massive freaking bunnies, like Cadbury egg bunnies, like the bunnies you see on those commercials, right? And I'm like, what the freak? What are we doing here? And she's like, I need to rehome these bunnies and I can't take them with me. My granddaughter bought them for me and they need to go to a good home, right? There's Kamahai. I love Kamahai. So Janie's like, I need help with this. Like, if you're serious about helping me, this is what I need. And I go, okay. So who do I call? Who's the most important person in my Rolodex? My mom. I call my mom and I put my mom on speakerphone, literally just like this. And I'm like, hey mom, I'm sitting here with Janie Munson and she needs blah, blah. I tell my mom exactly what she needs. My mom drives up. 40 minutes later, my mom brings my dad's truck, loads the bunnies up, takes the bunnies to my mom's farm. My mom has a farm, right? She then finds somebody in her church to gift them to and whatever. That's a whole nother story. But Janie's sitting there. She gives me a hug. I leave. My mom had already left 5 minutes prior and 2 weeks goes by. Nothing, all right? Janie calls me at the end of 2 weeks and she says, I am so confused right now. I'm like, well, hey, Janie, how are you doing? How's the home sale going? She's like, did you hear me? I'm confused. I go, why? And she goes, I thought you were going to call me any moment and manipulate me and tell me that you helped me and that you deserve to buy the house and I should lower the price. And I was expecting that for 2 weeks and you literally didn't call me. I go, well, Janie, I told you I'm not your buyer. I can't help you. So she says, well, I made a decision this morning based on this phone call, how this phone call would go, that I want to sell my house to you. And I'm like, I told you I can't buy your house. You want too much money, or I told her you deserve more money and I can't give it to you. That's what I told her. I didn't say you want too much. I said, you deserve more money. I just simply can't get it to you. And she says, I don't care what your number is. Get your paperwork and drive up to my house. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I call that person that helped me comp the deal in the first place. And I was like, what do I do? They're like, bro, this is the part of the story I never told, but the part of the story is I actually picked that person up on the way up there because I was so fearful of filling out the paperwork. So I took them on the appointment. I was like, Janie, I can't lie to you. This is my first deal. This is my first deal. And she's like, well, there's no better person to sell the house to because this is going to change your life just like you changed my life. And I said, why are you selling the house to me? And she said, Pace, you're the only person out of 15 or so people that I met with that didn't attack my house, didn't criticize my situation. You genuinely cared about what was going on and you went out of your way to help me with no expectation. And as I'm leaving this appointment with the contract in hand, I turned to the person who helped me. They ended up being my cash buyer on the deal too. I go, what the hell just happened? And the person that was with me says, it's because you found her bunnies. And so now anytime I'm sitting there talking to somebody struggling in real estate, I always ask them, they're telling me about a lead they're working or a seller or whatever. I go, where are the bunnies? Where are you going to bring a unique advantage to this person's life? A cash offer is not always the best fit. Sometimes it's a faster close. Sometimes it's cash up front. Sometimes it's moving expenses. Sometimes literally we in the business, we know that there's 30 or 40 things that you can bring to a seller that brings them a unique advantage or I guess a courtesy beyond just a cash offer. So I started learning those things. I started doing deals. I sold that deal to my cash buyer. I signed it to them. Didn't even know what an assignment was. They walked me through the assignment paperwork for 175. So I made 25 grand by helping this lady. And I was like, wait, is this literally this business? I find people and I assign the contract to somebody else and I don't even have to buy this? You're joking me. I literally put in 7 hours worth of work, including drive time, and I'm going to make 25 G's. That's like $4,000 an hour. This is stupid. So I started doing deals, and about my 5th deal in, I'm talking to my title company. Okay. And my title company, her name is Eileen Brown. And Eileen Brown, she congratulates me. She's like, Pace, you're doing a great job. Like for somebody brand new, you're cranking away. And I go, yeah, you know what? Here's the problem, Eileen. I'm finding all these bunnies for these 5 people I've been able to get under contract with, but I've got a stack of lists, like a list of people, a stack of people that I don't know what the hell to do. They want too much money or they have no equity. And Eileen goes, oh, that's easy. Just buy their houses on seller finance or subject to. And I was like, what? And she says, here's what I found, Pace. I've been doing creative finance transactions for 48 years. She was an escrow officer, still is to this day, an escrow officer. At the time, I think she had been doing it for like 41 years. So, 7, 8, 9 years later, I think she's at her 50th year, right? So this is a long time ago. She's still doing Zooms with like my community. She's coming in and helping people. She became my mentor. My escrow officer became my mentor. This is what she told me. She says, I hate assholes. And I was like, assholes? And she's like, no, ask holes. People that just ask questions about things they're actually not interfaced with. She says, I have no time for that. So what I want you to do is next time you run into somebody that has no equity or they want too much money, you bring me the situation, you tell me what's going on, and I will tell you how to buy the deal. And so I ran into probably a couple of days later, I ran into somebody who had no equity, and she taught me how to assign a sub-2 deal. Somebody had no equity. And I was like, who would buy a deal with no equity? And she's like, Pace, millions of people buy deals with no equity every single month. They're called homeowners. They're people who live in the house. They go on the MLS with an agent and they go to a brand new home in a brand new home community. What are you talking about? You're a contractor. You flip houses for other people. They're selling at top dollar. These people, when they buy their homes, have no equity in their houses. Those are the people you assign a sub-2 deal to, and you say, hey, I already have financing in place, and you assign it to them. And I was like, holy crap. And she would run down the statistics for me. And she says to me, let's look at Maricopa County, okay? In Maricopa County, there's like 10,000 transactions happen every single month on the traditional MLS. And she says that's 10,000 people that are, on average, are buying their properties at 95 to 100% of the ARV. They're paying full retail value for the houses. 10,000 people. She's like, you mean to tell me that if you secured the financing and the loan was already in place, you couldn't assign a deal like that for 20 grand? I go, I wouldn't even know how to do the paperwork. And she says, let me show you how to do the paperwork. So I get my first deal under contract within like 3 or 4 weeks of this. And I assigned my first sub-2 deal for $40,000 to a homeowner. And I was like, are you joking me? And all of a sudden, now all these leads that everybody else is calling bad, like these no equity or sellers that are just so belligerent about what kind of number they want, I'm like Superman. I'm walking into these appointments, and it got so powerful over about a year and a half that I would post on Instagram stories, hey, here's my next appointment. It's a picture of the house with my car in front of it. I'm about to go into an appointment, because I document everything on my stories all the time, okay? And I would get wholesalers that would DM me and go, oh crap, I was there 2 days later. I wish I knew you were coming in after me. I would have paid more money, because I'm buying the deal. And so it got to a point where I stopped spending money on leads, because all the wholesalers in town and the agents in town would just bring me their impossible deals, or at least what they called impossible, that I called behind the scenes juicy. These are great, juicy, amazing deals. And I just started wholesaling, fixing and flipping, and acquiring creative real estate within like a couple of months of me figuring out what wholesale was, because I was like, if I found the bunnies with Janie, and I've got all these other leads over here that don't have the same color bunnies, the same size of bunnies, the same exact issue, I got to figure out a different avenue to find these people's bunnies. And the people's bunnies were, a lot of times, I have no equity. And right now, that is 10 times stronger than what it was 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. It is like I could call right now on the MLS, or I could go, we use Privy a lot. I go on Privy right now, and in 45 minutes, get a deal under contract, sub-2, with an agent in the middle. I can go to an agent, get a deal under contract, sub-2, assign that deal to another homeowner that is like, I can't qualify for a loan, or I don't want a loan at 6.5% or 7.5% or whatever. The opportunity right now for creative finance is bigger than I've ever seen it before. And it is easiest to get into the business when you can pay somebody full value of what they're asking and be into the deal, no money out of pocket. So that became my mission. I just started talking about this everywhere, all the freaking time, showing people apartment buildings I'm buying, RV parks, lots, storage units, and I own about 300 single family and about 1,700 multifamily, all through creative finance. I bought my house with creative finance. I bought my cars with sub-2. I just took over people's car loans. I'm like, you can literally do this shit on everything. This is crazy.
And you bought a friend of yours house. You bought Jerry's house, right? So you did that.
Yeah, this is Jerry. If you guys recognize, this is Jerry's office. He did like 200,000 of his YouTube subscribers were subscribed while he was working in this office. I took over that $3 million house, sub-2.
And all you're doing at the end of the day, and I love this because, last time I heard you speak down at BPCon, you mentioned it, right? Creative finance is really the only way where both parties are going to win. You win, you have a new house, you have a nice new office. Jerry wins, he got rid of a bigger house that he might not have needed at the time, right? And I really do love how you bring that full circle, right? Everybody wins with creative finance. And I love that.
Yeah, it's a total win-win. Here's what I realized with Janie, right? Janie and the bunnies. In order for me to make money, she had to reduce her price significantly, right? She had offers by the time I came on the scene and signed that contract, she had offers at 170, 175. I bought it for 150 because I built this amazing rapport. And so I learned two things there. I learned one, there's a lot more people that are not like Jeannie, that are not going to be willing to drop 25 grand in order for me to buy the deal. And two, I actually don't have to be a great negotiator if I understand how to find those types of deals. I just pay more money than anybody. And when I first learned that, I was like, so Janie or my other sellers don't actually have to discount their price. They just have to wait a little bit of time to get paid. They can sell it at a much higher price. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then it reminded me of like I had already done seller finance, right? And it reminded me seller finance and creative finance is around you every day. My mom, for example, okay, this is where like people just don't get this. My mom, 12 kids in my family. My mom was a seamstress. Okay, so Angelique says, do sellers still have a loan on the home when you secure the property? Yes, that's what sub 2 is. Okay.
You're literally taking over a deal subject to their existing loan terms, right, Pace?
Yes, that's it.
And right now, are our loan terms higher or lower than they were a year ago?
My average sub 2 deal right now, like I'll put here, do I have screen sharing capabilities?
Yeah, I can pass it over to you. So you're
let me pull up a deal that came to me today. Okay. This is let's see. This is the kind of stuff I get all the time. Okay. This came to me this morning.
Pace, I've seen you before in the past as well post like, hey, send me your guys' stickiest deals. Like send me your toughest deals. I want to take them down. And this is how you're able to do this, is because you're able to do it subject to other people's terms. So what happened with Ken?
Okay, so here you go. Ken Reed, he's one of my students. He has no equity. Okay, the seller has no equity in the deal. Why? Is because he bought it with a VA loan. And what do we do? What do we know about VA loans? Is they put no money down when they buy their house.
Put nothing into it, so you're not going to have much equity in it when you get out of it, right?
Right. So look, he and his wife bought the house in 2021, and so now they need to sell it, and he has no equity. He's like, all I want is $40,000 in cash, and the mortgage is 1.9%. Guys, the average interest rate we're seeing right now
would love to buy a house at 1.9% right now, right?
Well, here's the thing that throws people off, right? They see the $40,000, and as a new person, they go, hold on a second, I don't have 40 grand. Okay, but I also didn't have $150,000 to buy Janie Munson's house. That didn't stop me from finding the bunnies and figuring that out and making 25 G's. It's the exact same thing. I'm not the one coming to the table with 40 grand. My buyer is. And people go, well, why would that be a value to your buyer? They're paying over value for the property. And I remind everybody, the value of something is very rarely the purchase price. The value of something is always what you can do with it, right? So for example, for those of you guys that don't know, yeah, there you go. Angelique says, I was under the impression that we have to find sellers that don't have any loans. No, those are the best. They have no solution. Agents can't help them. Wholesalers have no freaking clue, like no clue whatsoever until they learn some of these strategies. One of my favorite deals.
I love what you were saying about the value, because I know you bought a car one time and you were able to sell that to somebody strictly because, and guys, we talk about this too. There's price, there's value, there's cost. And those three words sound very similar, but they're all very, very different, right? And the value is what something is worth to you, what you could make off of it by having ownership of it, right? You might, and your car example was great because you sold your car to a contractor or a painter that was able to make thousands of dollars from your car. So he didn't really mind paying a little bit more for your car, right?
There you go. And if you look here, if you guys want to see, like I bought this Prius from a gentleman, this Kia. And this Kia I keep in my guest house so that like when people come in from out of town, they drive this Kia. So like I have people that go, hey, I'm visiting, blah, blah, blah. I go, don't rent a car. I got a Kia, right? Just drive my Kia. It's in the guest house. So I just took over the freaking payments on the guy. The guy had leukemia. Here's what happened. I have a videographer, right? We're always filming YouTube stuff here. And he comes and he goes, man, I've been working for you for like 3 months. Is there anything else that you can buy with creative finance? I'm like, yeah, bro, I could buy a car like today. And he's like, bullshit. I go, let's do it. And so I go right on this screen right here, and I pull up Craigslist, and I crank through 10 calls. I get a hold of like, I don't know, 4 or 5 people. And the third person I get a hold of, I kept calling even after this guy was like, let me think about it. I get a hold of a guy named John. He's going through, he has a brand new key. It's like maybe a year and a half old. And I call on it and I go, hey, would you let me take over payments? He's like, what do you mean? Like assume my payment? I go, no, I'm not assuming anything. I'm not going to call your bank. I'm not going to use my credit. I'm not even going to give you any money down. I'm literally just going to take over the payments, and the registration goes in my name. He goes, that would be really great. You really would do that? Why? Why would he do that? Guys, he bought the car brand new. The second we buy cars brand new off a lot, what happens to the car's value? They drop 20%, 15%, 10%. So he buys a brand new car, drives it off the lot. A year later, he's got leukemia. He can't work. He's on disability. The disability pays him not enough money to pay his car payment and his insurance. So he's like, I'm just going to get rid of my car payment and my insurance. That will save me $500 a month. So he goes, you would really take over my payments? I go, yeah. I go, I imagine with the year of your car and like now you're selling it, you probably have no equity in the car. He goes, no, I'd have to write a check for like $3,000 to get rid of the car. I go, okay, well, if I just take over the payments, you give me the registration.
He went from losing 3,000 to losing 0 and got rid of his biggest expenditure, right? So
right. And now I have
for everybody, and now you have a Kia in your guest house.
Now I have a key in my guest house. Anybody want to come over and come hang out? You can drive the Kia.
Everybody seemed to have won in that scenario. So I love it. And it's so cool too that you were willing to put your camera guy on blast and say, no, man, not only can you do it, but we will do it today. I will get it done. So I love that mentality, right? Because like you said, a lot of these wholesalers, a lot of these agents, they look at these deals and it's like, man, there's no way this deal could work. There's no way this deal can pan out. For you, it's almost the opposite. It's, hey, I just need to find those bunnies and then we'll make the deal work after that, right?
100%, 100%. And, I've got 1,000 other stories that I could tell, but like one of my favorite stories to get people to truly understand this is like Angelique. She's talking about seller finance versus sub 2, right? Sub 2 is when somebody already has a debt in place and you just take over the payments. Seller finance means the seller has no payments on it and you become you get an agreement with the seller directly, and the seller finances you and lets you make payments to them. So I'm like, some people go, I don't get it. I don't get what creative finance is. So I always tell them my F-150 story, which is kind of cool because I've got a new F-150 that I'm not a new one, but I've got an F-150. It's 7 years old now. I'm going to do the same thing, but do it on YouTube. And I'm going to do it in a 3-part series and show people like, here's the paperwork. Here's how you do it. I did it right here. Boom. So my private party value to sell my truck, my private party value is 25 grand. Okay. I just did the research on this. I can seller finance my same truck for $40,000. So as the seller, I can actually get way more money as long as I'm willing to give equal or better terms for that person. So technically,
could equate, right, Pace, to just meaning you're willing to take more time to get the money, right? You don't necessarily need
lower
the 25 payments now, or a lower amount every month, right? You can
no down payment,
the
right?
terms.
I tell sellers all the time, if you want a higher sales price, then give me no down payment. You want a higher sales price, let's do principal only payments. So this is one of my favorite deals I ever did. Since we're not on YouTube, I can actually talk about this deal. By the way, be careful on YouTube. You guys will get your stuff shut down by putting like addresses and stuff on YouTube. They've been like cracking down on that. So I've got a deal.
They don't want you giving out like personal data or information or anything.
It's my own house, but for some reason they're like, you can't put addresses on YouTube anymore. Okay, so check this out. This is gangster. I wasn't able to show this, I don't think, even at BPCon. Okay, so here's a property I bought, right? Where's the address? It's
I don't 1906. See it on the page.
Okay, so 1906, 78th place.
There we go, 1906, okay. 78th place. All right.
In 1906, 78th place. All right, here we go. So this deal right here, I got a seller to sell this property to me in via seller finance. Her name is, their names are Dale and Susan Poyer right here. Okay. So let me break it down real quick for anybody that still doesn't understand this. Okay. So you've got Angelique who just brought this up. This is great. Remember, I told you guys wholesalers would call me up and go, Pace, I got this lead, I got this deal, I got this situation, I don't know what to do with it. And I go, okay, great, let me go to your appointments. That was literally like my lead gen for a long time. Now I've amplified and I'm buying deals all over the country. So we have our own lead gen and coupled with people DMing me and YouTube and Facebook and blah, blah, blah. So the wholesaler goes, Pace, this seller saw that their house was on Zillow for $100,000 and they want to sell this house for $110,000. And you challenged me. You told me that you could get the impossible deal done. This lady has no pain whatsoever. She doesn't want to go with a real estate agent and she wants to sell for 110 grand. I go, easy. That's a great deal for me. And like, it's crazy even thinking about this, even years later, that like I do these deals and I'm like, that's a great deal. And I'm hearing myself speak like 10 grand over retail. I have to inherit a tenant. The seller is belligerent, doesn't even want to use an agent. And I'm like, yeah, I'll buy that deal. That's a great deal. And they're like, how is that a great deal? I'm like, because the value of something is never the purchase price. It's always what you can do with it. So let me get an appointment. So I get an appointment. I go down and meet with Dale and Susan. The wholesaler's there with me. I record the whole thing like I do. Every single thing I do is recorded all the time. Why? Because I learned from listening to myself and other people learn from listening to myself, right? So I'm recording the whole conversation, which is great. And we get to the point where we're talking about price. And I said, Susan, why haven't you sold the house so far? What's the question, right? Same question. What's kept you from selling the house? And she says, well, everybody's lowballing me. And I told everybody I'm not budging off 110 grand. I go, okay, well, let me guess. You're probably getting offers at like $40,000, $50,000 on the property. And she's like, yeah, how'd you know? I said, because Susan, that's where I would be if I was going to buy the house for cash too. And she pauses and she says, what do you mean if you were going to buy the house for cash too? I go, because I'm not here to buy the house for cash. I already know that your asking price is a belligerent asking price. You're unapologetic. You are rude almost about your sales price.
You bought the truck for 40 grand, drove it off the lot and want 50 for it. You are belligerent, right? Like you're not even going with common knowledge here.
Yeah. And I made a joke to her. I was like, are you sure your name's not Karen instead of Susan? It's the recording is so good on this thing. It's unbelievable. So her and I had a good rapport, so I could tease her. That's a really good analogy, by the way. You bought a car for 40, you drove it off the lot, put it on Craigslist for 50. Like, who the freak are you, right? And better yet, this is better. You drove it off the lot, you farted in it, you freaking ate a hamburger, spilled the hamburger, and then you put a homeless person in the back of the car and say, you have to buy this car. And now you want
50 for it, right?
And yeah. You have to take the homeless person with you, right? That's how bad of a deal a wholesaler would have looked at this. And I'm looking at this like, this is a gold mine. So I said, Susan, she goes, what do you mean you're not going to buy it cash? I go, well, I would be willing to come up to your price if you would be willing to give me terms. And I pause. And then I know, because I've been doing this for a long time, they're always going to go, what's terms? And I go, well, Susan, let me tell you what terms are. And this is the first time I had ever told the story of the F-150, and it became popular because I used to give this recording out all the time to people, and people then.
And guys, if you're listening in, write down these terms that Pace is going to go over, because when you talk about creative finance and seller finance deals, it's price and terms. So Pace is going to go through a couple of terms right now that helped him be able to buy this house, and those are typically the terms that you can negotiate when you ask for terms, right?
Right. And we've climbed, we've got a good 60 people on here. Anybody learning anything or getting any value today, give these boys some freaking love, in the side comments. Show some love to these boys putting this together. This is huge. Okay. So here's what happened. So she goes, what are terms? I go, here's what terms are. Okay. Eliam says, I'm going to start finding the money. I'm going to tell you guys something. I've done a couple thousand transactions, a lot of wholesale, a lot of fix and flip, a lot of buy and hold. And I can tell you, I've never done a single deal in my life that I didn't find the bunnies. Never. I can tell you every story. There's always something going on that you have to find, that you bring unique value to that situation. Okay. So here you go. Eliam says, I'm going to be revisiting old leads. Don't revisit your old leads. Just send them to me and I'll buy them all. Okay. Because that's how I've become rich. Okay. Check this out. So I get this seller. I'm in front of Susan. Susan says, what are terms? And I said, okay, Susan, here's what terms are. I used to have an F-150. Do you know what an F-150 is? She says, of course I do. It's a freaking Ford truck, you dummy. Everybody knows what a Ford truck is. I go, okay, great. We all know. Perfect. So she says, go on. What does an F-150 have to do with anything? I go, it has everything to do with what's going on here. Okay. And she says, go on. And I say, okay, great. So my F-150, Susan, was in my construction company and it hit 320,000 miles. And this is not a Toyota. This is a Ford. And a Ford hits 320,000 miles.
Daily, right?
Right. We're going to have some issues, right? Yeah. So I start having some issues. I decide I'm going to put the truck on Craigslist and I don't know the price. I don't know what it's worth. So I go to the Zillow of cars and I go, what's the Zillow of cars, Susan? This is literally it all in the recording. And she goes, oh, that's Kelley Blue Book. I go, right. So just like you, I decide this house is worth more than what I care about. I want to get out of it and I want somebody else to deal with it. And I'm ready to move on to the next chapter of my life. And she goes, okay, great. What did Kelley Blue Book say it's worth? I go, they said it's worth $5,000. And for me, a 4-door pickup truck in my construction company generates me $5,000 a week. It's not worth that to me. And by the way, Susan, if I put my truck on Craigslist for $5,000, what do you think I'm actually going to sell it for? Because we all have been on Craigslist before, right? I'm getting like $3,000, $3,500, and I'm going to get some wholesaler that comes along and like tries to justify their lowball offer with a all cash, quick close sale. And I go, does that sound familiar to the offers you're getting? She's like, that's exactly what everybody's saying. I go, okay. So now do you see where the F-150 comes in? She goes, yeah, okay, this is making sense. So I go, Susan, I'm belligerent just like you. I take my F-150, I go put it on Craigslist, and I list it for $10,000. And Susan says, I bet you sold it. I go, I didn't sell it. I didn't get a call. Nobody even called me to tell me I was belligerent. 3 months goes by. My wife has to come into the office and tell me, please, sweetheart, can you please get the truck out of the driveway? I have to go around it every night when I come home. And I go, what do you want me to do? I'm not gonna dump a truck for $5,000. It's worth more than that. I'll just fix it myself. And Susan, I go, Susan, have you ever thought about that too? You'd rather just deal with the house yourself than get lowballed? She's like, yes. I go, that's how I felt. And my wife's response was, well, sweetheart, you're the creative finance guy. Why don't you just sell the truck and accept payments instead of all of the money up front? And I go, oh my gosh, you're so freaking genius. Why didn't I think of that? So I run straight to Craigslist, change one thing on Craigslist, and I say, F-150 will take payments. And she's like, oh my gosh, I bet you sold it for 10 grand. I go, nope, I didn't sell it for 10 grand. I sold it for $12,500 with $1,000 down and $350 monthly payments. And she's like, holy moly, why would somebody ever overpay that much? And I said, Susan, it's ironic you're asking me that question when you are listing your property $10,000 over what Kelley Blue Book says your car is worth. And I literally used that line. You're listing your car, and I tied the story into her house, and it hit for her. And I said, so again, I'm going to ask you again, would you sell your house to me at 110 if I was willing to come up to that number, if you were willing to give me terms? And so she replies, and she was like, all day long. I'll do that all day long. And I go, great. You're the bank. I'm going to make payments to you, and I'm going to become the new owner. You're the bank. You're no longer the owner. What would you want if I was willing to pay 110? She says, $20,000 down and 8% interest. And what do I do, guys? I go, I'm probably not your buyer.
I'm not your buyer because that's the same as the bank down the street, right? You got to give me some better terms.
And I literally physically take a step back and I go, I'm probably not your buyer. Okay. And she goes, well, what would you do? And I go, Susan, you've already won the battle. You've already won the battle. You're getting double what the house is worth. You're getting double what the house is worth. So in order for this to make sense for me, it'd have to be a principal only payment. What does principal only mean, guys? It means 0% interest. But I don't say 0% interest. I say principal only. So it'd have to be a principal only payment. And I would have to do a very low down payment, if anything at all, because I'm already overpaying for the property. And she says, okay, I'll do $10,000 down and principal only payments. All right, we're moving in the right direction.
Now we got some. Now we can work with that. Yeah.
So here's what our final negotiation is. Okay, our final negotiation was this, and I almost don't want to pull this up on the screen because people will read this. I'll read it. I'll show it to you in a second. I said that $10,000, Susan. I don't want to give you that $10,000 down payment right now. I'll give you monthly payments plus a chunk of money towards my down payment every 6 months. So I'll give you in 6 months, I'll give you $5,000, and in 6 more months. I saw that on
the contract you pulled up. You had $5,000 due at the beginning, and then $5,000 a little bit later on. So you can
there you
even
go.
do
So
terms
here's the paperwork
on
right
your
here.
Terms, right?
So I bought it March 31st of 2020. Right here. I gave her my first down payment September 19th of 2020.
Love it.
6 months. Then I gave her another $5,000 6 months after that. Okay. Here's my regular payment of $375 at 0% interest. Where did that monthly payment come from? Okay. It came from me finding the bunnies. How did I find the bunnies? What were the bunnies? The bunnies were, Susan wants to retire. She's done with tenants. Her tenants live in the property, are family members, so they take advantage of her. She also wants to go and travel the country in an RV. And the question I asked her was, how much does it cost for you to rent a place to store your RV as you're traveling the country? She says, I don't know, the average amount of money is like $375 a month. And I said, what if I gave you a payment that made it so you would never have to pay out of pocket towards a rental space on an RV spot, and you could travel the country basically for free? She's like, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, you're going to give me 110 and you're going to give me 10 grand. I go, I'm going to give you 10 grand, but over the course of a year. And by the way, when I give her the $10,000 down payment, it brings the house down. And every time I pay $375 monthly payment,
those are principal payments, not interest payments. So you're lowering your debt as you make these payments.
Right. I get the contract. I'm walking out of the appointment. The wholesaler tells me, dude, why would you overpay for that property? Right. So let's pull up this property first and foremost. That cash flows me. How much does it cash flow me? Let's do the math. I took over a tenant. I didn't have to pay for renovations. Susan paid for my closing costs. I had no closing costs. Took over a property, took over a tenant, no renovations. The tenant is still in the property. The tenant is paying $1,650 a month.
You should be netting 16 minus your 350, right? I mean, that's a great cash flowing property on your behalf.
Yes, my net after insurance and taxes and like repairs and whatever else is $1,000 a month. So in my first year of owning the property, I brought in $12,000 in net cash flow, and I gave her $10,000 of it. So her own tenants paid her own down payment on a property she seller financed to me. And I do deals like this all the time. I just did a 43 unit deal, 0 down, 4% interest. The seller gave me 50-year terms. It's bonkers. So like, let's look this one up. This one's a good one. 1906 South 78th place in Mesa.
And okay. I see some folks in the chat right now just saying, wow. And like, again, like, yeah, guys, this is possible. I know Alex, one of our biggest deals, out in Maui, we bought on terms, and same thing there. Like, we got the guy to give us 3 years to make him the payments. And it was just because we asked for it.
That's it.
What were his payments for? It was, he lives in Chicago. He was an old gentleman and he didn't think he was going to get out to the island again for vacation. We said, well, where's some place nearby you could go? And, he rattled off a couple places, and it was, hey, what if we could get you out to those places a couple times a year? That was all he needed.
That's it.
It was enough money to get by for the year. And that was his number. If we could get him his number within 3 years. So what happened on this place out in Mesa? This is the place now that's worth.
As you guys saw, I bought it for 110, and the wholesaler who walked out on the deal, and it was like, I can't even believe you pulled this off. He says, you overpaid for the property. You overpaid. I don't understand it. And after I explained it to him, I go, first and foremost, I don't buy houses based on value. I'm buying cash flow, right? And the lower amount of money I can pay for that cash flow, the better. I got into this deal, no money out of pocket, principal only, and I know the property is going to appreciate. And today it's worth $230,000. I still have the same tenant in the property. Literally zero out of pocket. I didn't borrow money. I didn't use a credit card. I didn't use anything. No money out of my pocket.
You just moved assets and moved terms around, and they ended up in your bank account.
Right. So amazing what you can do with seller finance. Amazing. And we do that now, not on just little mobile. I don't really buy mobile homes anymore. We graduated to like mobile home parks and apartment complexes and stuff like that. But these are the deals that I practiced on, and I structured on, and I was like, I remember one of my favorite deals. I had one of my students goes, I bet you couldn't get more creative than that deal. And I go, oh, you want to see? And so I do a $1.3 million purchase, $0 down, principal only. And I wrote in my note, right, the promissory note between the buyer and the seller, I wrote that the seller, every time I come into town, into Atlanta, Georgia, they are required to take me to dinner. And that is in my agreement for the next 30 years.
That's in the terms. You have to take me out to dinner. It's in there.
It's in the terms. I have so many sellers that pay for their own closing costs and letting me take over their houses. I get sellers that go, I don't have the money to pay for closing costs. I go, no problem. You can reimburse me. And so I'll pay for the closing costs, take over their payments. I'm the new owner of the house, no money out of pocket except for the closing costs. And then they make Venmo payments to me every single month. We divide it out for 2 years, and they have to pay like $200 a month until they pay off their closing costs. So I'm like, I just show people like you can do anything you need. You just got to make the terms work. That's it.
And I love how, you bring it back full circle, right? It's hard to know what the terms are if you don't know what the bunnies are. Like if you don't know what that person needs. For Susan, it was, hey, she needs $380 every month, so she never has to worry about parking her RV again. She can travel. That wouldn't be something that you would necessarily find in a first, second, or even a third conversation with a seller unless you knew to look for it and unless you knew, hey, I need to find that bunny first. Alex, we talk about this with all of our new acquisitions, guys, right? Like, I do not care if we don't buy a house. We have to help the person first. And 99% of the time, it does end up in us buying the house. But unless we were able to help that person, you call it your unique buying criteria. Like, what is your unique reason to go with me as a buyer instead of somebody else? Because I'll tell you, my offer is usually going to be lower. It's usually going to be, on terms that favor me. Like, by all means, my offer isn't the best, but I will help you. And that will usually lead you to giving me the deal, right?
Right.
I mean, dude, Pace just covered so much. That's why we wanted him on, because I mean, the market needs this type of message. Him talking about having your unique advantage. There's so many wholesalers out there, investors. Like, what makes you different? It's so much of this. Like, I love the little tactics. Like, I'm not your buyer. Just these. I mean, the way you present yourself to somebody, and they're just used to everybody wanting the deal, and instead of really wanting to help them. Wanting to figure out like, well, why am I even standing in front of you? And I guess I have some questions, but I know we're kind of running a little bit light on time here. I don't know how much time. Pace is at 3,000 people waiting for him downstairs. But absolute epic. Thank you for all the great stories. Does anybody have any last questions for
one
Pace
question that I saw that came in from Corey that was a great question, because Pace, I know a lot of times people worry about the risk side of things. So Corey just wondered, in that particular deal, let's say you needed to get out of the deal. Let's say for some reason Pace said, you know what, I don't like $1,000 a monthly cash flow. This isn't working out for me. How would you get out of that deal?
Here's another question, Corey. If I got into any deal, forget about creative finance. If I got into any deal, if I went down to the bank and I got a loan to buy any deal, how do I get out of it? I sell it. I get out of it. I sell it, right? And
you can sell on terms just like you can buy on terms, right?
That's a whole nother podcast by itself that we probably can
right?
melt some brains on. But so I sell it, I refinance it, or I can assign it and get out of the deal, and I can put somebody else in the place. It's actually way easier to get out of the deal in creative finance because my name's not on a loan. My credit wasn't used. It's called non-recourse. There's zero recourse if I die and something happens to the house. Like, it doesn't go back on me or my family. The loan is in the seller's name. And that's the hardest thing for people to understand, is that they're like, how do you own the property if the payments are still in the seller's name? I'm like, okay, let's ask this question. Okay, here's a great question. When you go into a grocery store and you buy groceries and you use your American Express, does American Express own your groceries, or do you own your groceries?
I remember you brought this up at BPCon, and that was like a real mind cluster for me. I was like, wow, that blew it up. Like, well, I own the groceries, right?
Oh,
They're
are
in
you
my
sure?
fridge.
Because American Express used their money.
But I owe the payments to Amex, right? But
There
they're
you
in
go.
my
So,
fridge.
and you got the receipt. So in real estate, the receipt is the deed.
The deed of
right?
trust, yep.
So if I get the deed in my name, I am the owner of the property. A lot of people call the title and the deed the same thing. Not to get technical, but they're not the same thing. And we shouldn't be saying, hey, let me get the title in my name. That's for cars. We don't get titles in our names. Deeds are in our names. What title is, so deed is who owns the property, and title is how they hold that property. So for example, Pace is the owner of this phone, right? I have this phone. I am the owner. How do I own it? Well, I own it in my right hand, right? So title is how you own something. So for example, Pace's LLC owns the property because they have the deed. The title is it tenants in common? Is it sole proprietorship? That's title. Ownership is in the deed. So I get the deed or the receipt of my groceries at the cash out, right? When the cashier gives me the groceries and they take my money, there's an exchange and they give me the receipt and they say, you're the new owner of this property. However, I still owe American Express and I pay them at some other point, but those are my groceries. It's the same thing in real estate. I can transfer the ownership of the groceries however I want. Okay. I just have to make sure that my payments are due. So one last question. Jeremy says, well, Pete Vargas, man. I love Pete Vargas, but he's like, you ever get people just like FaceTime you like in the middle of the day and they're like, yo, let's FaceTime. I'm like, bro, you think I don't have 85 things going on at every single moment of the day? Okay, so I love Pete Vargas. He's unbelievable. So Jeremy says, have you dealt with any situations where sellers don't or they stop making their installments? Jeremy, the sellers are not involved ever again. I don't communicate with the sellers. In seller finance, they become my bank. So there's no payment for them to make to anybody because they don't owe any money. The money goes to them. Can you guys hear my daughter going pee? Hold on, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I hear Corbin back there in the background, and I love what you're saying, right? Because again, you are now replacing the bank with this seller, and so to your question there.
So in sub 2, right, which is where there are payments, right? You have one seller finance. There are no payments for the seller to make. They own the house free and clear. The seller who sold it to you on subject 2, I'm not making the payments to the seller, and then the seller makes the payments to the bank. The seller is removed entirely. I make payments now directly to the bank or through a third-party servicer who handles that for me. The seller in a sub 2 situation will never touch the money ever again.
And so you're removing that problem. Now there's never a, hey, the seller isn't going to make a payment on your behalf, because like you said, you're making the payment on your behalf directly to that seller, directly to that other party, whether it's, subject to or what have you. So I love that. Again, I think, what you really kind of unbuttoned here is a way for people to still be purchasing properties in this market, even in a shifting market like this. I think everybody on this call, after listening to what Pace had to say, could take down a deal this week. I think, Pace, you're probably going to take down several properties this week using these same principles and practices. So I think everybody here on the call, if you got a lot of value out of this, if you think you got some more creative finance background, go ahead and give us a big, round of applause and a big thank you to Pace. Like we said, I know he's got a short amount of time here today, and we want to be respectful of his time. But Pace, where can people catch up with you? Where can people follow you? Where can people connect with you?
Just go on YouTube. My YouTube's free. Go to my YouTube. You guys will learn just about everything you want on YouTube. YouTube is really good. It's good for education, but I can tell you guys, most of the reason why you guys fail or anybody fails in real estate is because you lack what you currently have right now, which is mentors, people that you're learning from, people that you can connect with. So consider yourself in the very, very top elite people that have figured that part out. Because what most people do is they just read books, they go to seminars, and they go to YouTube. Okay. What you need is you need to go learn a couple of things on YouTube and then come to mentors like these boys, like these guys, and say, help me with this or help me with that or whatever. And then they have connectivity. Like, do you guys know that a lot of people I go do podcasts for do not let their audience talk to each other? These guys are really
wild, right?
It's wild because you and I don't do it that way, but the majority of educators and gurus do. They want to be the boss. They want to be the popular one. They want to be the hero, and they don't like letting anybody else win. And so for you guys need to understand that. Make sure you are giving love to these guys and showing them how much value they are providing by telling them that.
Thank you, Pace. Appreciate that. And that's why we love you so much too, because of the community that you're building. And we're really passionate about that as well, that it's not about Will, it's not about me. It's about, helping everybody else kind of, collaborate, elevate each other up. And dude, I've really enjoyed the interview here, especially because the stories that you told, it resonates with people. People can remember stories and frameworks of looking at something that maybe in the past they didn't look at that way. And so I think you're an absolute genius when it comes to that, too, just like putting it in the form of, hey, this is what happened. This is how I changed my way of thinking about it because of this particular story. So thank you for that, man.
How many people appreciated that, the way that Pace is able to use a car transaction or a grocery transaction, something that maybe you've done thousands of times, in the back of your head, you've bought in those groceries, but seeing it in that grocery perspective, did everybody really kind of understand how that works in terms of seller financing? For me, I love what you were saying there, Alex. Like, it really helped resonate with me because I do buy groceries all the time, right? I don't buy seller finance properties every day, but I do buy groceries every day. And that transaction really helps you understand who owns, those goods. So I agree, Alex. I love that. And I think anybody here on the call, if you guys have any last kind of words or any last thanks, if you're on screen, feel free to go ahead and kind of share verbally. And if you're just kind of chatting in here on the chat, we'll appreciate your thanks there via the chat. But again, I can't thank you enough, Pace. I know Alex and I, secretly had a lot of questions that we wanted to ask and got answered. And I know a lot of the folks here on the webinar did as well. So we do appreciate your time.
Have me come back. Us. Like, I'm happy to come back and do like a Q&A. If you guys have like specific questions, I'd love to get deep into it. These stories are like very basic beginner like stories. I got very high level, amazing stuff that will melt your brains through your ear holes. So have me come back and I'd love to do a Q&A with all you guys. I got to jump on my other Zoom though.
Yeah, brother. We know you got a hard stop. Appreciate your Pace. We'll see you, my man. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you guys. See ya.
Guys, we got a hard stop here too. I know Alex has some traveling he's got to get done, and we're working on some stuff up here as well. But just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for showing out and joining us here on the webinar today. Alex, any closing thoughts on Pace, our special guest?
No, I didn't get to say much. I was listening, man, but his stories are amazing. I've seen him present before. Just make sure you follow him and get into the community there if you're working on subject to deals, because it can be so powerful right now. It's a great time to get versed into that area of real estate investing right now. So we'll see you guys there on the creative and the flip side. Let's go.
Thank you, guys.
Let's go, guys. We'll see you guys. All right.